Good morning. And Happy New Year, I suppose. First of all, thank you for everybody this morning showing up in this windy, cold morning. And then when I got out this morning, I thought, wow, it's cold. And thank you, Trinity and Lois both, for so lovingly filling in for Ann while she's resting her throat. A true blessing, and the boys in the band, of course. A cold morning, if you think about it. Did you know that New Year's used to be celebrated in springtime? It's actually the oldest celebrated holiday in the history of man. It goes back 4,000 years, 2,000 years before Christ, approximately. And back then they celebrated New Year's in springtime because it was, like Ginger said in her prayers, new beginnings. New flowers were blooming, and the garden was growing, and birds were singing, so it made sense. And it went on that way until Julius Caesar changed it. It was in 46 BC. And he changed it because every emperor prior to him, because they were an emperor, changed the calendar because they could. Power. And so they changed this, they changed the calendar. He changed it back because it got out of sync with the sun. So we synced it with the sun, making New Year's be January 1st. Of course, back then it was a little bit different. They celebrated New Year's for 11 days. Those Babylonians were some party animals. I don't know what they drank back then, but I couldn't imagine after 11 days. And did they have sobriety checkpoints? Who knows what these are? They're ice cubes. You know, David last year in the White Stone ceremony, he had talked about how he had cut the stones personally and how that really gave him a connection with the ceremony and the clean slate and all that. Well, it was about, the sun was just going down last night when I decided I probably should cut the stones. Well, when you cut the stones, you use a wet saw. And a wet saw outside at 10 degrees, these are ice cubes. Almost got frostbite, but I had to actually, you'll see the different size of the stones. At first I was cutting them about 1.5 inches. And I was cutting them about 1 inch. And then after it took me a half hour to thaw out my fingers, I said, well, I'm going to cut it just a little wider so I don't have to cut quite as many. But everybody got one, right? Yes. Okay. Buddha.
What is it?
Where does Buddha go? Yep. Buddha's here somewhere. Buddha said, believe nothing. No matter where you read it or who said it, no matter if I have said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense. Now, if you think about that, everything that who we believe we are today is based on what we've heard, on what we've read, what we've experienced. It's where we heard it from somebody. But if it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't resonate with you, don't believe it. Not even what I'm going to tell you today. So open mind, but it doesn't mean that it's truth. How many of you guys have made New Year's resolutions this year or in the past? And how many people have kept those resolutions? Okay. Today we're going to talk a little bit about that. About resolutions. I think the songs today were so appropriate. Resolve to evolve. I am the light of the world. If we hold that consciousness today from the beginning, what if God is in one of us? In all of us? It's an interesting thought, isn't it? What if? Have you ever said to yourself, what if? Now, my sons and I, one of our favorite things to do is to sit around after dinner and talk. And we were having a talk about God one time, and one of my boys said, Dad, what if we're just an experiment in a big petri dish? there's somebody up there and he throws in a little bit of greed, and he throws in a little bit of lust, and he throws in a little... What if we're just an experiment on a petri dish? What if I made more money? If I was born into a wealthy family? What if I never got married? What if I never get married? What if there's somebody out there that might truly love me for who I am? What if I had a better body? What if I was stronger? Things that David talked about last week when we talk about our lack consciousness. What if I had a better education or a different degree? What if I was healthier? What if he or she wasn't so stubborn? What if God does not make mistakes? What if you knew the world was going to end next month? Would you do anything differently? What if you could write your own epitaph, which literally translated means on the gravestone? What would you write? And are you there yet? If you think about the miracle of God, if God created the world, the universe, the sun, the stars, the moon, the constellations, the planets, life, humankind, so every person in the world is uniquely different. That miracle, the animals, the insects, how could something that powerful, that miraculous, that magnificent make mistakes? So what if God doesn't make mistakes? Why don't our lives go exactly as we want them to? A lot of what-ifs in the world. So today we're going to take a look at perhaps changing that, or the perception of that. What if everything happens for a reason? What if God never gives us something that we're not strong enough to handle? What if life's the school and love's the lesson? What if I truly loved God with all my heart, all my soul, all my mind? What if I loved my neighbors, myself? What if I let go of the past and truly lived in this moment? Be a lot to let go of, right? What if I did not believe there was a God? What if all I have is this lifetime, and then it's over? Has anybody ever said what if to themselves? That list could go on and on and on and on. There's so many what ifs. And what if life's the school and love's the lesson? But if this is it and it's all over, would you do anything differently? Would you still want to be loved and treated fairly? Would you still want to treat your neighbor nicely? Would you do anything different? Would it feel any different if this was it? I want to read a story that I read on the internet years ago, and I think it had a profound effect on me because it really made me believe in the power of positivity. And some of you may have heard it because it's been out there, my goodness, ever since the internet. Jerry is the manager of a restaurant. He's always in a good mood. When someone would ask him how he is doing, he he would always reply, if I were any better, I'd be twins. Many of the waiters at his restaurant quit their jobs when Jerry had moved to a different restaurant so they could follow him. Why? Because Jerry was a natural motivator. If an employee was having a bad day, Jerry was always there telling the employee how to look at the positive side of the situation. Seeing this style really made me curious, so one day I went up to Jerry and I asked him, I don't get it. No one can be positive all the time. How do you do it? Jerry replied, each morning when I wake up, I say to myself, I have two choices today. I can choose to be in a good mood, or I can choose to be in a bad mood. I always choose to be in a good mood. Each time something bad happens, I can choose to be a victim, or I can choose to learn from it. I always choose to learn from it. Every time someone comes up to me complaining, I can choose to accept their complaining, or I can point out the positive side of life. I always choose the positive side of life. But it's not always that easy, I protested. Yes, it is, Jerry said. Life is all about choices. When you cut away all the junk, every situation is a choice. You choose how you react to situations. You choose how people will affect your mood. You choose to be in a good mood or a bad mood. It's your choice how you live your life. Several years later, I heard that Jerry accidentally did something you're never supposed to do in the restaurant business. He left the back door of his restaurant open. And then, in the morning, he was robbed by 3 armed men. While Jerry was trying to open the safe box, his hand shaking from nervousness, slipped off the combination. The robbers panicked and shot him. Luckily, Jerry was found and quickly rushed to the hospital. After 18 hours of surgery and weeks of intensive care, Jerry was released from the hospital with fragments of his bullets still in his body. I saw Jerry about 6 months after the accident. When I asked him how he was, he replied, if I was any better, I'd be twins. Want to see my scars? I declined to see his wounds, but I did ask him what had gone through his mind during the robbery. The first thing that went through my mind was that I should have locked the back door, Jerry replied. And then after they shot me, as I lay on the floor, I remember that I had 2 choices. I could choose to live or I could choose to die. I chose to live. Weren't you scared, I asked. Jerry continued, the paramedics were great. They kept telling me I was going to be fine, but when they wheeled me into the emergency room, I saw the expression on the faces of the doctors and the nurses. And I really got scared. In their eyes, I read, he's a dead man. I knew I needed to take action. What did you do, I asked. Well, there was a nurse shouting questions at me, said Jerry. She asked me if I was allergic to anything. Yes, I replied. And the doctors and nurses stopped immediately to listen to what I had to say. I took a deep breath and I said, bullets. Over their laughter, I told them, I am choosing to live. Please operate on me as if I'm alive, not dead. Jerry lived thanks to the skills of the doctors and the nurses on call that day, but also because of his amazing attitude. I learned from him that every day you have a choice to either enjoy your life or to hate it. The only thing that's truly yours, that no one can control or take away from you, is your attitude. So if you can take care of that, everything else in life becomes much easier. Today in the ice cube, I mean the white stone ceremony, we also have a choice. We can choose to begin the new year with a fresh start. We can choose to be the light in the world. We can choose to